From Ticker, this is the Trades and Builders Business Show with Miles Primrose.
Welcome to the Trades and Builders Business Show, the show dedicated towards trades and building business owners across Australia. In the coming show, we will talk with leaders of the industry associations, the heads of suppliers, people making a positive impact in the industry, and of course, talk with some trades and building business owners about their journey, about them being as good at business as they are at their trade. The most important area in the industry is the mental health of our trades and builders. And today we have the founder of HALT Australia with us, Jeremy Forbes. Jeremy, welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Miles. It's great to be here. Thank you.
And look, we've been sort of following each other on social media for quite some time. And even though we only spoke in the last couple of weeks, I picked up the phone and you said, I know your name, but we've never actually met before. But I think we know a little bit about each other.
Yes, we do, and that's a great start, I reckon. Yeah.
What I'd like to ask you first of all is, look, I've seen a lot of your work on social media. I've seen the events you run, the barbecues you run, that type of thing. I want to start off with, how did it all start, and sort of why did HALT start?
Yes, well, everyone loves a good origin story, and I'd like to also acknowledge your acknowledgement of mental health, and that it is a big issue in the building and construction sector. It's not always talked about, so thank you for that. First off, HALT, Hope Assistance Local Tradies, is now a registered charity with the ACNC. It technically started in 2013 after the suicide of a tradie in Castlemaine in central Victoria. And there was a lot of questions, no answers. Not a lot of people talked about it. The tradies didn't really talk about it. We were at his wake, and the conversations, were they in that wake, in that moment, were the conversations around, wow, there's too much of this happening. How can we help our mates? What can we do? No, the conversations were around who's next. And that really bothered me, to think that here we are in this amazing, and it's a beautiful community in central Victoria, in Castlemaine, yet we weren't going to do much for our mates, and that we're worried about who's next, who we're going to lose to suicide.
So that's your hometown, is it? Or
in Castlemaine, yeah. I've been there 25 years.
Okay.
And it's an amazingly understanding, supportive community. And so I walked out of there, hugged a few guys, and hugged a few tradies. So I know a lot of tradies in Castlemaine. I've been a painter and decorator there for 20 years.
And just with that, like hugging a bloke, if you look at that sort of 20 years ago, that wasn't really a thing that would happen much. What was that like then? How did they receive that?
Well, that was only 6 years ago, so I don't mind the odd man hug. That's fine, Miles.
Yeah.
And so it was hugging a mate and saying, "Come and talk to me.
Yeah.
If you're struggling, come and talk to me." This was before HALT.
Yeah.
And then I walked away and thought, what am I supposed to say though? And what's the usual response from tradies out there in the wide world?
Yep.
You hug, you're sitting there with a mate, he's struggling. It's you'll be right, she'll be right. Get over it, keep going, all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Which doesn't help anyone, really. So I walked out of there, I got a phone call probably a week or two later from Catherine Pilgrim, my co-founder, saying, let's do something for the tradies. And I said, great, what are we going to do? And she said, we talked for a bit, and we said, let's do an event to raise awareness about what services are out there, how to help, what to do for a mate. And so that was the nucleus of where HALT started. And we decided to do it at a hardware store in Castlemaine at Tonks Brothers Hardware, because that's where tradies feel comfortable. They feel supported. Often tradies go into a hardware store and it's a little social engagement for them if they're working on their own or with a couple of them. So that's what we did. We sort of decided to go there, and then we started talking about what we needed there to make the event successful, and it sort of went from there, Miles.
So you were a painter at the time, or?
Painter and decorator.
Yes.
My first day of trade school, I was told a couple of things, and one of them was to always say painter and decorator.
Okay, all right.
I don't know.
My apologies.
No, apology accepted. That's fine. Yeah.
So you can hang wallpaper as well?
I hate wallpaper.
Okay, but you can do it.
Do you know what I was asked to do at trade school? And I'm not sure if anyone out there has ever hung wallpaper on a ceiling, but they asked us to hang 5-metre strips of wallpaper on a ceiling. I ended up throwing it across the room.
So the reason I asked you that is you had your own business, and then you started the HALT journey. So how did you go about managing two different important things in your life?
Well, painting became less important. I got really disillusioned with the industry. As a small sole operator, I struggled financially. And the weather conditions, I know what it's like out there for tradies. I know personally as a painter, sanding weatherboards in 35 degree heat, painting in the cold weather, all that sort of stuff, on top of the pressures and quoting and finance. I wasn't enjoying it at all. I struggled, and to be brutally honest, I don't know if I've ever said this before, but I reckon every couple of weeks I'd end up in tears. I wouldn't tell anyone. Of course you don't tell anyone, because you've got to be strong and stoic. You just hold it in. So instead, I just
this
get
is
home.
before or after the HALT?
No, this is before HALT.
Okay, yeah.
This is just the building industry. I'm like, is this what, I don't want to do this anymore. And so HALT come along, and I thought, this is okay. And I was still doing a bit of painting, but then the HALT started to take off, and we started to do more events across Central Victoria. But we weren't charging for them. We weren't getting money for it. It was just volunteering to help community.
So you mentioned about this lady, Catherine. She's obviously on your team. How did the team start to come together for HALT?
Over a cup of tea at her house. So she rang me, let's do something. I said, great. And she's got a couple of boys, and the guy who lost his life to suicide had 4 boys. So it resonated with her as a mum. And so I went and spoke to Jason at Tonks in Castlemaine and said, we should do a brekkie, let's do an event. And he said, great, because hardware stores, they see the financial impact. They see the tradies coming in every day, and it's like, well, we're extending your line of credit. Do we extend that credit a little bit more, give them the last bit of timber to finish the house, or PVC pipe to finish the plumbing? They're over there, they're owing all this money. Yes, they see them struggling mentally, so we thought the hardware store was great. So we got Jason from the hardware store, Catherine and myself, and then we got a couple of other concerned community members, got together at the pub. I don't think there's any beers involved. It was just a social place, and we sat down and really brainstormed. We brainstormed HALT, what we wanted to do, who we are, grassroots. Let's do an egg and bacon breakfast. Let's call it a Save Your Bacon Brekkie, and let's do it at the hardware store. Let's get Rotary on board, because Rotary do a great job out there, as do Lions.
Yep.
So we got Rotary on board, and we approached some service agencies. So it was one thing to get tradies. Yeah, I'm not going to bring tradies in and just tell them something. I want to give them some tools. I want to give them some options. So those options to know what support services are out there for them, which a lot of tradies don't know. That's a bother. That's a worry.
So since you've started up until now, what type of reach do you think you've made within the industry? How many people do you believe actually know about what you're doing?
I believe there's maybe. I haven't thought. I'll just go through every single event and calculate every single person in my head, Miles. So give me, I reckon we must have hit almost 100,000, because we've been going 6 years now, and we've done 500 or 600 events across a broad range across 5 states, and a broad range of places and services and businesses and tradies and apprentices and all that sort of stuff. So I'm hoping through that intricate web of people talking that we've reached potentially hundreds of thousands of people.
There must be a pretty good feeling knowing that you're doing something which is actually helping people, helping trades, helping builders. Now, it is for trades and builders, yes.
Yeah, look, it started off as tradies, and we had 30 or 40 or 50 at the first event, and it was interesting. People say, it's very successful, and I'm like, I remember this one story of a concreter, really hardcore concreter, who I saw a couple of days before the event, and I thought, it'd be really good if you come to the event. I think you really need some help, because you know what's going on in your community, you know what tradies are going through. And I said, mate, maybe you should come to this event. And he goes, I'm not coming to your effing event, but I love what you're doing. So
sounds like he needs it more than other people.
Well, he does. So you just got to keep working. You can't push him too much. So it started off with tradies, and then went to apprentices. But of course, and I was learning on my feet, because I didn't know much about this whole thing. And then it was like, okay, well, suicide ideation, anxiety, depression, this sort of issues and mental health issues, it affects everyone. I don't care how much money you are, what colour you are, what religion you are, where you work, what you do. I don't care what car you drive or anything, or how much you earn. This affects everyone. So although starting with tradies, it's now gone to factory workers, miners, men's sheds, because men over 85 have the highest rate of suicide. So we need to look after our older men in society. Partners of tradies, farmers, miners, students. It affects everyone. So we're about a whole of community approach now.
What's your mission for HALT?
Save lives.
Pretty simple.
Well, I think simple's good. I'm a simple man at times, sometimes too simple, to be honest. But it's like when we were setting up HALT, it was like an archery range. You've got all these different things, an archery board. You've got all these different coloured, all these circles around. But what's at the nucleus? What do we want to do? We want to save lives. Can we do it? Yep. If we've got a room of 100 people there, are we saving one life? No. We're saving 100. Whether it's now, in 3 months, in 12 months, in 3 years, the tools and the information they can get can save lives.
So tell us about, I haven't been to one of your events, I've seen some of them advertised, but just say there's an event close to me and I come along. What happens at the event?
It's very casual. There's no expectations to talk. Yeah, so I don't want tradies to think, or anyone that comes to a HALT event thinking, oh, we're going to have to pour our heart and soul out. It's not like that. It's just very, just opening up conversations, bringing the stigma, breaking through the stigma. We get there, say we're doing an event, we're doing a brekkie, you rock up, you have some food. Yep, usually an egg and bacon roll. Sometimes there's sauce, sometimes there's fruit juice, there's fruit, whatever it is there. I get up and talk about HALT, and I think tradies really enjoy hearing from other tradies and me being open and honest about what I've gone through. So I don't go too dark or too deep because that's not really helpful at times, but they hear my story. They hear that tradies can access help. Tradies can break through that toxic masculine culture around being a tough tradie. They learn about how to be a good listener, how to have a tough conversation, and we often get other support services there. And nearly every event we do try and have a counsellor or doctor there, just in case what we say triggers off the tradies.
What are some of the ways that help is offered, I suppose? I mean, other than actually physically being there at the event, I know some people might want help, but they don't want to get up in front of the group, or some people want to talk, some people want to talk away from everybody else. What are the... Well,
you're right, you're spot on. So it's the group getting together, and then I get up and talk. So sometimes we eat beforehand, sometimes we eat after, but no one gets up. Like, there's no tradie expected to get up. This is really early intervention, prevention, unlocking whatever is there to stop you from getting help. And so I get up and I talk, and a doctor might talk, or someone from Headspace or Lifeline might get up and speak briefly. And it's after that, after the tradies have heard that important message, then we mingle, and that's when they've got an opportunity to talk to me, or talk to the counsellor or the doctor, or they might talk to the owner of the hardware store the following day, who can now point them in the right direction to a counsellor or a doctor.
So what would be, since you've started up until now, what do you see as some of the great milestones? Now, to me, there's two sides to this. There's your, there's HALT itself, I suppose, in the operation that you built, and there's milestones for maybe, I'm sure you would have had some people that would have called you or sent a message to you saying, thank you, you've pointed me in the right direction, or you've supported me in a certain way, and that to me is a milestone as well. So could you tell me about some milestones since you've started?
Yeah, the first event, obviously, that's pretty cliched, but to get through that first event and for it to work, and nearly every single HALT event, we have a tradie or whoever's there come up afterwards and talk about how they've gone and how they've worked through anxiety, depression, thoughts of suicide, and actually attempts. And they're happy to come up and talk. They're not suicidal or in danger at that time, but they're just so happy that someone's normalised it, that someone has talked about it, that someone has even mentioned the word suicide in a conversation, which is very unusual. So they're really happy with that, and those people often feel now empowered and no shame, and it's okay to be vulnerable, and they now feel empowered to go out and speak to other people. So that's one thing. The first event, I get texts, emails, phone calls every day. Saturday, Sunday, people just wanting a bit of guidance, a bit of help, and of course we're always there for them. Our first big bit of funding. So funding always helps along the last 6 years. Acknowledgement.
So with the funding, can you tell me more about that? Because there might be some people that when they watch us or watch us later on, they might be able to help. So
yeah, of course.
Tell me what you've got so far, and maybe some things that you're looking for in the future.
Yeah. So obviously when we first started HALT, there was no funding. So that's one of the critical one of the crucial parts of the origin story that shows that we're grassroots, that we're always going to be grassroots, is that we started with help from community, from the tradies in community, the local hardware store, the butcher, the baker, and the egg guy. So we started from that. So it's always going to be grassroots. Yeah. So we started there. We got some funding through Bendigo Community Health Service, some primary health networks, the Master Builders Association, Bendigo section. They've helped us out with money from their charity golf day, which kept us going in the first few years. And then as it's grown to a point where in March last year, we had Greg Hunt, the Federal Health Minister, announce $2 million for HALT, for 4 years of funding to put HALT workers across regions across Victoria.
That's amazing. So, that's fantastic.
Telling me that was amazing. I was in my car on a Saturday, and we've gone across 4 or 5 states, so I've travelled widely with this. And, you know, to be honest, I worked under minimum wage for a long time, slept in my car, some dodgy hotels, just to make this work, because I believed that what we were doing was making a difference. And then in March, getting that phone call, sitting in my car in a car park in Castlemaine, and I had Greg Hunt, the Federal Health Minister, ring up and say, Jeremy, you got some time to talk? And I said yes. And he said, and we've been in discussions with Greg.
This is the Federal
Health Minister. And we'd been in discussions with Greg. And then he rang me up on this day and he said we were doing an event in Mount Martha, organised by my great mate Merv Stewart, a great supporter of HALT, huge driver of this. And we got a phone call from Greg, the Federal Health Minister, and he said, we're going to award HALT $2 million over 4 years. And I just sat in my car and cried. I seriously did, because I thought, wow.
But that was a good cry though, wasn't it?
That was a good cry. And it was like, imagine how many people we can go and help. So the money's come through now, and we've got workers out on the board, so that's great. Speaking at conferences, but to me, one of the biggest things was I talk to the other tradies about struggling out there and pushing yourself too hard. I pushed myself really hard in November and December, just trying to get HALT up and running and contracts and workers out there. And I really struggled during Christmas. So all the tradies out there that struggled at Christmas time, I'm glad you got through. It was really hard for people. And then I had a conversation with a dear friend of mine, New Year's Eve, about how I was in that November, December, and that realisation I'd pushed myself way too hard to the detriment of HALT and friends and loved ones around me. And so it was a massive turning point after 6 years and getting quite successful. And that it took till then to realise that I had pushed myself too hard. And so there's a new sort of energy with work-life balance. And a TED Talk. I forgot about my TED Talk, 1.4 million views.
Maybe you can tell us a bit more about the TED Talk when we come back.
I can do that when we come back.
We're going to come back very soon, and we'll be back with the Trades and Builders Business Show. See you soon.
This is Ticker.
From Ticker, this is the Trades and Builders Business Show with Miles Primrose.
Welcome back to the Trades and Builders Business Show. I'm Miles Primrose and we're here with Jeremy Forbes from HALT Australia. Welcome back, Jeremy.
Thanks for having me back still, Miles.
So before the break you were starting to tell us about your TED Talk. I didn't know you did a TED Talk.
I did a TED Talk.
How long ago was that?
2016, I think, late 2016 at the Horton Pavilion in Sydney, and it was indeed an honour. It was really nice to get up in front of 600 people and talk about how to have a conversation around suicide and the origins of HALT. So we got out to a global community, audience, world. It's a big place out there, which is great. Yeah.
How are you on stage to 600 people that were probably not trades?
No, it was through Westpac had an issue with they had not an issue. The Westpac had organised a TED Talk, and it was about changing lives and future impact. And so I'd already previously received a fellowship through Westpac for social change work with HALT, and so they offered up some positions for a TED Talk, and I submitted my very basic 1 minute thing at the overlooking Castlemaine, little selfie video, and they said, yep, let's do that. So we worked with the team over in New York and Brooklyn to get my TED Talk up and running, and so we're in front of 600 people, and then it went live a few months later across the world. So we've had some really interesting discussions around tradies, and the conditions that tradies face across the world are very similar, and issues around suicide prevention and what we can do and what other people are doing really well overseas. Yeah.
Where can we go to see a copy of that TED Talk?
And I reckon TED.com, go on the main TED page,
Yep.
and have a look and just type in Jeremy Forbes and you'll see it there.
Okay.
Add to the numbers, because Mum keeps checking every bit, and she sends me through every 50,000. How many? No, she doesn't really. I love my Mum. I love Mum very much, but she was very supportive. So yeah, it was good to get the word out there. Another vehicle.
The other thing I wanted to ask you is about men not talking, or the big stocky image of the person that actually doesn't want to talk about things or open up. Tell me a bit more about sort of why you believe that is that way, and what are you doing to help change that?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Miles. I reckon that's such an important thing, that culture, that stoic, strong culture. Now, I love the idea, don't get me wrong, I love the idea of a strong, sweaty, tradie, hard-working. I love that. That's great. Let's not change that at all. What I do want to tweak and change is the emotional capacity, the capacity to know where to go to get help, to actually go and get help. Where does that stem from? Your family, your parents, your upbringing, demonstrated social behaviours, and then we have a lot of these tradies coming through into apprenticeships. They might have some learning difficulties, they might be leaving home, going somewhere local in a regional area, and suddenly they're in this massive male-dominated culture. I don't think previously, to be brutally honest, we haven't given our tradies and apprentices the right tools, the right life skills to go out and get help.
Or maybe giving them permission, in a sense, to actually
permission
to open up.
Yeah. Well,
And
you go on a building site and they're like, harden up.
Yeah.
Get a cup of concrete.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear it. Do
Yeah.
your work hard.
And some of that stuff that they do, the apprentices early on, is not a good thing. Tell them to go to the hardware store and get striped paint, or get the left-handed screwdriver. And there's things worse than that. But that type of stuff, when the apprentice is young, is actually not good for them for later on. Actually, you need to. It's, in one hand, they want great people, they want great apprentices, but they treat them poorly sometimes.
And no, spot on. And so why do they treat them poorly? Because there's a cycle that we haven't broken. We're talking about bullying and harassment there. Let's bring in bullying and harassment. What does that lead to? Anxiety, depression, suicide. We see it. It's there. The stats are there. They don't lie. We know that. So we have this cycle in the building industry where I'm being bullied and harassed. One, I don't want to say anything because I might lose my job. Two, maybe I'd rather join in and bully you because then I'm not being bullied. And three, I say to them, if I'm brave enough to say, hey, I'm not really enjoying this intimidation and this verbal stuff. I'm not enjoying this. Well, you know what, mate? I was bullied and harassed as an apprentice, and I was told that when I get an apprentice, I can do that to my apprentice. Wow. It's 2020. Let's break that cycle.
Yeah, it's not
There's
cool.
no more of that. Call bullying and harassment out. We know what it does. Have I bullied and harassed people? Yeah, I have. I've been part of that culture. Have I been bullied and harassed? Yeah, I have. But now I want people to call it out, and I want the apprentices to talk to their employers if they can. I want to talk to their trade school teachers and call it out. No more of this stuff.
And look, this is not a HALT thing, but in one of the workshops that I run quite a few years ago, so the workshops would go for quite a few months, and on the very last day of the workshop, these men, and it is mostly men, they have to get up and they have to actually do a speech on how they were before they started the workshop. What are some things that have actually changed, some views that have changed in their business and their personal life, and how, when they walk out their door, how are they going to approach life from when they walk out the door? So it's not about me, and it's not about anybody else in the room, but it's actually about them drawing a line in the sand, and actually, they're talking about the person that they're essentially creating. Now, there's a guy in the room, he'd be 55, he literally is that big stocky bloke. And he read this out, and there was a tear in his eye, and it was a good tear. Anyway, then he was one of the last people to talk. He went to sit down, and I was standing up the back of the room, and there's like an L-shaped room, and he's gone round to the corner of the L-shape where there's nobody else there, and he's pointed to me and he said, "Can you come round here, please?" Away from everybody else, he's given me a hug, and he said, "If you tell anybody else that I bloody hugged you, I'm going to smash you." He said, "Thanks for the last few months."
Great,
now, I was nearly crying.
Yeah, it's great. It's a good story. Yeah.
But I was sort of crying and I was laughing. I'm thinking, you've just thanked me, which is fantastic. But if I tell anybody else, you're going to smash me.
There's duality there, isn't there, with that way of thinking.
So the risk factors, we've spoken about, or we haven't spoken yet, but you've mentioned things to bring up. There's the finances. There could be personal finances, business finances, relationships, family, work-life balance, drugs, alcohol, work stress. There's a lot of things. What would be the main one or two things that come up as an issue?
Yeah, good question. I like the questions, Miles. So I've spoken to tens of thousands of tradies, qualified tradies, apprentices, tens of thousands. And when I start talking and they feel safe, they can be vulnerable, there's no shame, they're comfortable, and I talk to them in their language, in the tradie speak. So I promised you I wouldn't swear, so I'm not going to. But I say to them, there's a group of them there, and once again, they don't have to say anything. If I say, okay, what's not working in your life? Come on, tell us. There's 100 guys there, or 100 apprentices. What isn't working? What are some of the major issues? Relationships, finance, family. So I think finance and relationships. And let's bring it back to apprentices. When I asked the same 100 apprentices, or no, the same 100 tradies, let's go with the tradies. Okay, so what did you learn about finance at trade school? Nothing. So we're talking about the system failing our people, our tradies out there, then we learned nothing about finance. Yep, okay, relationships. Did you learn about respectful relationships? Did you learn about how to cope with relationships, about domestic violence, about drugs and alcohol? Nothing. So, or very, very little. So there you go. The issues that present themselves when they're tradies and they're out there working are the issues we need to get at as apprentices. Finance, relationships, work-life balance, family, drugs and alcohol. It's accepted. It's part of the culture. Drinking, drugs, and also one that we hear a fair bit about that we don't talk about is grief and loss. So all these things we don't learn, and we might have all these things, these risk factors, not demonstrated very well in our families as we're growing up. But grief and loss, and for tradies that could mean the loss of a mate, a lover, a partner, a wife. For me, it was one of my biggest losses in my life was my nan. But let's always think outside the circle a bit, that a tradie, the grief and loss he experiences when he loses his dog, his work dog. So that could really impact them a whole lot and send them down in that dark tunnel. And then, stresses, pressure, work-life balance, that sort of stuff.
And the work dog is really a human to a lot of people.
Well, he's there. He
Yeah.
or she is there through the unconditional love, the tough times, the down times, the great times. He comes home, he's had a big day, the dog comes up and licks his face and jumps on, he's like, everything's great. Or at lunchtime or something's happening, the dog's there. So please be aware of that grief and loss.
Better than a human sometimes, he doesn't answer back.
Well, you know what, Miles? Lucky we're not going live because I prefer cats sometimes. But
Are you a cat person?
Maybe. Yeah, I've read a lot of Murakami. He's turned me into the Japanese author. He's turned me into a cat person. But I have not yet seen a cat on a job site. If any tradies out there has seen a cat or taken their cat to a job site, can you please let me know?
Well,
Maybe not. I don't know.
look, it's a funny thing because I'm actually a cat person as well. So.
I knew that. That's good. That grief and loss and that struggle.
So, I believe this is one of the most important things. What makes a good listener?
Yeah, what makes a good listener? I'm going to jump back to that TAFE thing also as well. For any apprentices out there, every TAFE has counselling services and support services, so apprentices can get support out there, free counselling. So please, any apprentices out there, go and get some counselling. What makes a good listener? I think trust, respect. And you know what I've found as a tradie myself is that when I have a conversation with a tradie, it invariably, before I started HALT, it turned into me. I'm listening to Miles, I'm listening to you talk and I'm thinking, mate, you don't have anything to worry about. And as soon as you shut up, I'm going to tell you how bad my life is and you'll feel better about yourself. So it's not a competition. Yeah, I'm going to listen and I'm going to hear. So because I'm a good listener, everything when we're having that tough conversation and you're telling me the things that aren't going right in your life, I'm listening and I'm hearing them and I'm storing them up to repeat back to you out of respect.
So the other thing is the word suicide. Should you use it in a discussion with somebody? How should it be used?
What do you think? You come from my generation. I'm probably a little bit younger than you, maybe.
We can debate about that later.
No. Well, it's interesting because once again, we go back to that demonstrated behaviour when we were younger as an apprentices. You never talked about it. You know what? The media still struggle, and we know the suicide rate out there is twice the road toll, sometimes 2.5 times to 3 times the road toll. But you don't see the stuff, the information in the media.
Is the suicide rate higher in males in the industry or females?
Males. So 75%. This is approximate. All the details are on the Australian Bureau of Statistics, Lifeline, Black Dog Institute. They're out there for people to Google. Roughly 75% of the suicides are men. 25% obviously women. Women make more attempts, but men actually go through with it. And blue collar workers and tradies, we lose hundreds a year to suicide. It's really an important issue.
Have you seen that come down in the last few years? Do you know?
The rate has come down by a couple of hundred in 2018, I believe, which is fantastic, but we still need to keep coming down.
Yep.
Attempts are at 60 to 70,000 a year. So it's really out there. We need to be talking about it. So why don't we use the word suicide? I have some rough ideas about why we don't use the word suicide. What do you think?
To me, this is not me, but I think that talking to somebody else, it could be too confronting, and that person might want to shut down or walk away with some people.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yep. I always thought when I grew up in that culture that, Jeremy, if you mention the word suicide, you're going to make a mate do it. You're going to put that thought in their head.
Yeah.
Really? I've spoken to many people who have survived suicide attempts. They don't want to die. They want the pain to go away. And actually mentioning the word suicide normalises it, gives them a bit of validation that someone's understanding and listening, and can potentially be that flame that is lit in that dark tunnel and brings them back. So can you use the word suicide in a conversation? Do it. When you've got a mate and you're listening to him, and you've heard what's going on, family, work, stress, all these things, drugs, alcohol, gambling. We haven't mentioned gambling as well. That's a huge issue. That your mate that you know and love is going through all those things, then there's a good chance he or she has already thought of suicide. So saying it to it in a conversation, that's going to bring him or her back.
Do you believe that social media, there's a good side and a bad side to social media? Do you think that with the way social media is going, that there's actually people are starting to lose connection with other people? There's the love's not there, the connection's not there. It's becoming a bit too cold, I suppose.
Maybe. I think that changes day to day. I think if you still want to get out and socialise, get out and socialise. I'm a firm believer. I know a few years ago when I was probably my closest to deepest, darkest thoughts of suicide, I put a photo. Now please, I was topless in the river, and I took a photo of me in the. I know it's scary, but I'm trying to get buffed and shredded and toned. Anyway, I took a photo of myself and put it on social media, me topless, and I had this look in my eye. And a lady who, Alana, who lost her son and daughter to suicide, saw that photo and rang me, and she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "I saw that picture on social media, on Facebook, and I could see something was wrong in your eyes. So please, yes, social media can be not good at times and an issue in society, but when you see someone and you're worried about them, you see a look in their eyes, or if someone's saying something that worries you on social media, and all we can say is it's a call for help. Well, if it's a call for help, answer it. Make the phone call, ring them, text them, send them a message. I don't care. There's lots of great stuff on lines to call, numbers to call, Lifeline, suicide callback service, men's line, kids helpline. We see all this stuff scrolling through our feeds. Well, take note of it. Reach out to someone.
I was going to actually ask you, so what's the best way to access these services, and what are some of the most suitable services for people in this space?
Great, awesome. Yes, so if you're worried about a mate, for me, first step is to GP or a doctor. There's so many community health centres out there, doctors, clinics, there's all this stuff out there. If you're worried about a mate, let's not forget, guys, you don't have to solve all your mate's problems or take the burden and guilt of whatever. You can just simply say, "Mate, I'm worried, I love you, I'm worried, I'm concerned, maybe we should go to the doctor." And your mate goes, "I'm not sure," take him to the doctor. Yep.
Thank you, Jeremy. So
Nice.
we're with Jeremy from the HALT program. You're on the Trades and Builders Business Show. We'll be back with you very soon.
This is Ticker.
From Ticker, this is the Trades and Builders Business Show with Miles Primrose.
Welcome back to the Trades and Builders Business Show. I'm Miles Primrose from Business Side, and today we are with Jeremy from HALT Australia. G'day, Jeremy.
G'day, Miles.
Now, before we went to a break, we were talking about
Where to take your mate or where to go yourself. if you're
Absolutely.
struggling. So, yes, as we said, the doctor, your GP. So please take your mate to a doctor. And this is what we talk about at the HALT events, about going to see a doctor. So it's like, if your mate hasn't got a doctor, there's community health centres and there's doctors' clinics out there. So your mate's a bit hesitant. I don't know if I want to go to a doctor. Do you know what you do, because you love your mate and he's a mate of yours and he's a friend and all that, is that you can get your phone out and you just ring up and book an appointment, a double appointment for your mate. And then he or she's still not sure. Take him to the doctors.
Yep.
Park your car. Sit in the waiting room with your mate.
Yep.
Yeah, go in with him if you need to. Yep, get in the doctor, a mental health care plan, get 10 sessions, and then go, mate. The doctor will invariably say, here's a list of counsellors or psychologists to go and see. Now, I've seen a psychologist, several counsellors, and several psychologists. So you say to your mate, this one mightn't work, but there's a lot of counsellors out there. So that's awesome. That's potentially a life-saving conversation rather than us traditionally going, you'll be right, she'll be right, another cup of concrete, which doesn't help anyone. Actually,
So some of those care plans, they're available on Medicare sometimes, aren't they?
yeah, you can bulk bill them.
Yep.
Yeah, sometimes, not all the time. And so that conversation, which we can start shifting, which is happening, that shift is changing. We are hearing people say, we didn't say you'll be right, she'll be right. This time we said, let's go to the doctor and let's book you in to see a doctor. And HALT now, as part of our growth and our regional growth, has now got HALT-friendly clinics, doctors' clinics and psychologist clinics that tradies can get into and get that double appointment and know about HALT and what we're doing, which is fantastic. So counsellor. And then, you might see the first counsellor might not work for your mate. So it might have several counsellors or you. So don't get too upset or disenchanted if one counsellor doesn't work. Try to go to as many as you need to until you find the right one. If you need that 24-hour service, you've got the hospitals, you've got CAT teams. For those between, I think, 12 and 25, you've got Headspace.
A CAT team?
A CAT team, a crisis assessment team, which you can call. The police are doing a wonderful job with welfare checks.
Yep.
So you can just make a call to the police and say, I'm worried about Miles. Can you go around to his place and just check on him? So that's all really good. And you've obviously got Lifeline 13, 11, 14. When I become Prime Minister, I'm going to put them in the Constitution that they're fully funded forever, as long as they want, because they're staffed by volunteers and they're there 24/7, and most of them have gone through their own experiences. So if you're worried about a mate, he doesn't want to talk to you, ring up Lifeline, give your mate the phone and just stand back and wait to see how he goes with that. And you've got Beyond Blue Online, Sane Australia, Reach Out. We need to realise, Miles, that the tradies out there aren't alone.
Yep.
Because sometimes people think there's no one else going through this. There's thousands of tradies around Australia potentially going through these issues. So you're not alone, and there's help out there. We just got to break through that culture and access that help.
So if we look at HALT, or I suppose the future of HALT, one of the questions I've got for you is, who else do you need on your team to actually help you moving forward?
We need on our team a very, very rich philanthropist.
Yeah.
But aside from that, we want people in community that want to hold and host HALT events. Yeah, so we've got workers mix on the Frankston Mornington Peninsula down there, doing that with Kate, working down there full time. So going into businesses, hardware stores, TAFEs, all that across there. We've got Tom in the northwest suburbs in Melbourne, so anyone in there that wants to hold an event. We've got people in Bendigo, over in the Eyre Peninsula, up on the Port Macquarie area. We're just expanding our workforce. So if anyone out there really wants to take that first step and say, I need to do something for my workers, get in contact with us.
So some of these services we can expect to see in 2020. So there's the barbecue that you spoke about before.
Yep.
That
also, it doesn't have to be a brekkie.
Yep.
Yeah, because what we want to do is HALT's very organic. We want businesses to go, it works for us, Jeremy, a Friday lunch or a Saturday night. And this is not 9 to 5. Mental illness, mental health, suicide, depression, anxiety doesn't switch on at 9 and close at 5. Yeah, it's 24/7. So we will fit in with whatever time the hardware store or the builder or the work site or the mine or the farm or the TAFE, anytime someone wants an event, it doesn't have to be a brekkie.
Now you want to keep these events away from the pub?
Yes. Oh, well, look, it's a place where guys go. Really, it's legal. It's a place where guys to go. But we don't usually involve alcohol.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So when's in the next couple of months, when are some barbecues and things that you've got coming up in the next month or so? What locations are they at?
With the workers down the Frankston Mornington Peninsula, I think there's quite a few at some hardware stores down there and some TAFEs down in the Frankston Mornington Peninsula, and there's some starting to come through. We're still starting to get some organised over the Christmas New Year period. It's hard, and their workers only started late last year, so already they're pushing into businesses, factories, workshops, men's sheds, wherever, sporting clubs as well. So we'd love to go. If you've got a footy club out there, I'm really excited about Collingwood this year. 2020 is the year of the Pies.
I don't understand. What do you mean you're excited? Is Collingwood your team?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so we
Right.
end
This
it now.
is not going well.
You're Carlton or Richmond?
I'm Hawthorn.
Oh dear. Anyway, sporting clubs after training on Thursday nights. Footballers, netballers, tennis, croquet, bowling clubs. I don't care. Let's get to everyone in community. So there's events in the northern suburbs of Melbourne, Bendigo, obviously Central Victoria, over in Adelaide, Eyre Peninsula with Jeremy over there. So there's just ones everywhere. But we did some tough yards with HALT. If you've got a business that has a workforce and you want me to come along, I'll just make the effort to come along and talk.
What are you doing to make sure that you don't wear yourself out?
Well, having some tough conversations. So I had a tough conversation, like I said, New Year's Eve, that I thought I was going all right, but with reflection and stepping out and looking in, I wasn't coping very well. So for now, it's about not putting so much expectations and pressure on myself that I have to live and breathe HALT 24/7. I had it like a burden or a cross or a stone, depending what religion you're from. So for me, it's having that work-life balance and actually saying, sometimes I need to step out, and the HALT stuff can wait until the next morning.
Absolutely, because the thing is, you're not going to be any good to anybody else if you don't actually take a break now and then.
No, but it's like a hit when you build something from nothing, whether it's a business and it's become successful, and you just want to ride that momentum, and you just want to keep going and going and going. And so you're like, nah, it's got to keep channeling in there. I've got to keep doing it because everyone has this expectations of me that it's hard to break through that. So I had a big one there. I say to the guys out there, mostly men, but women as well, that a lot of them tell me they don't have enough time for themselves, which is so important. Obviously, eat well, sleep well, we know these things, but hobbies, interests, passions, we get so busy that we don't find the time for that.
Well, you talk about people having expectations of you. I think one of those that I would have is that you would actually take a break every quarter, or maybe a long weekend or 4 days off, or go somewhere or do something to. Is there somebody that you've got that you can actually say, you've obviously got a phone that's just for HALT, I suppose. Is there somebody you can give that to for a few days?
No way. So HALT and my phone are enveloped, that eternal flame. I think that was Bangles sung Eternal Flame, didn't I? I like the Bangles. Anyway, so for me that's intertwined at the moment, but I am finding more time to get out there. I travel around Australia for work, so I found when I was talking about suicide and suicide prevention 3 times a day potentially, morning, noon and night, that I needed things to do in that moment. So I go and take photos a lot. I'm a voracious reader of military history, so Battle of Waterloo is my favourite battle, Roman, World War II, Napoleonic, whatever it is. So for me, I need to be reading nearly every single day. That's good for me. And I go bushwalking, because we're doing a 160k walk over 6 days. We'd love you to join us, Miles.
How many?
160 k's over 6 days. Have a think about that.
Look, I'm happy to think about it.
That's good. So there's little things that I need to do for my mental health.
That's not a little thing.
I'm giving you more time.
Okay, all right.
Some music, please.
I think we should talk about the next question.
Yes, please.
What's the most enjoyable part of your role?
Apart from this interview?
Yes.
It is the looks on the faces of the people when I'm talking, whether they're farmers, apprentices, tradies, whatever. The look on the face, the acknowledgement that I'm hearing you, and that we know this is the case, and that someone's talking about it. The conversations afterwards, the ones where you see, we saw a big miner, and he came up to me in a mine, and I'm like looking up at him. He walks up to me, and he's fully kidded out in his mining gear and just wants to get down and mine. And he just looked at me and just grabbed my hand, almost broke it in a handshake. But he had this tear just running down his eye and just looked at me and nodded. That's it. When I have a guy stand up and go, I've got depression, I've never told anyone, but if anyone out here wants to talk to me, here I am. When you get the text messages saying, thank you so much, I was there, I just like the fact you've normalised it. That sort of stuff, that grassroots connection, that's the most important part, and part of my learnings now is to find time to be proud of what we're doing with HALT.
The other thing, I asked you, who else do you need on your team? So other than somebody that's got quite a bit of cash, what other partners or people would be good at, just say somebody wanted to get on board, they wanted to find out more, they wanted to help you and help your cause, who would be some other suitable people?
People that want to help build HALT, so people that own hardware stores, people that own businesses that want to come and support HALT, people that want to donate some money in return for HALT coming and talking to their workforce, if they want to donate tools or prizes or stuff to give away to the tradies, if people have some financial counselling to give. So it's really important that we go, hey, this is what the tradies need. Is the tradies need stuff around, we've got the doctors, so their mental health, they can look after their mental health with the doctor and the counsellor and the psychologist. But if someone wanted to say, hey, we come from an accounting background or financial analyst, or we want to help tradies free, give them financial support and counselling for free, we'd love that. Gambling, alcohol, drugs, stuff like that, money we get donated, we can turn into counselling services. So it's not just telling the tradies, this is what we want you to do. It's actually going, here are the people we can turn to. So if anyone out there knows a doctor's surgery or a counselling place or an accountant or a financial counselling place that wants to donate their time and become a HALT-friendly doctor's clinic or a HALT-friendly financial clinic, well, we'd love that as well. Open your doors to the tradies. Let's give them the support and the tools to get some help.
So just say my training room for my business is in the northern suburbs of Melbourne. So just say I wanted to organise one around there. What would I do? What would be the first step?
Call me.
But you're right here.
Text me. Call me. Email me. Get on the website.
Okay.
Jump on board Facebook. There's many places to find me.
Yep.
Or find HALT. Find HALT.
Yep.
And we'll go from there. Open up the conversations. Make that first step.
So, obviously, I run workshops for trades and builders. So, just say I want to run one. I don't actually want to be seen as the person running it, because it might be seen that I'm trying to get business from trades and builders. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, if I say, okay, I want to help you set one up in the northern suburbs of Melbourne. My contribution might be I pay for the eggs and bacon and that type of stuff.
Yep.
I'm there, but I'm not actually the one hosting it. So would somebody else come and host it? How would that work?
Yeah, I'd come and host it.
Okay.
So it'd be me working with you, what fits for you, what works for you, supplying the food. I love food, so supplying the food's really good. If it's an afternoon tea, maybe some scones with jam and cream. I'm quite partial to that. But it's us having a conversation with the owner or you and saying, what is it you think the trades mostly need? What sort of needs to be the main focus for me to talk about? And what support services specifically do I need to get there to tailor to the people that you expect to come to the event?
So then we organise this, we organise a date, we organise a location, and then it's about me sending a message out to the people I know and the people that I know in my network, and then you would actually use your network as well.
Well, as much as I can, but this is about you.
Okay.
This is about accessing your people. We don't access your people.
Yeah.
We can put that there. We can do the poster, help with emails, promote on Facebook, Instagram, all that sort of stuff. But for me, it's about that moral and ethical responsibility for you wanting to do something for your people. So you'll push a lot of that stuff and invite them. That's what a lot of businesses do, is they invite the people that work for them, the subcontractors, the people around them.
So one last thing before we wrap up the show. I think I've said this before, but where do people go to find out more about HALT?
Facebook is great, so find us Hope Assistance Local Tradies on Facebook.
Yep.
HALT.org.au, so let's not forget HALT is a registered charity.
Yep.
But HALT.org.au, we're on Instagram. They can call me 0409 756 274 and or shoot me an email at jeremy@halt.org and find me. Please reach out and find HALT.
Well, thank you very much for your time on the Trades and Builders Business Show.
Thank you, Miles. It's been a pleasure.
So thanks for tuning into the Trades and Builders Business Show. We'll see you next Tuesday at 9 a.m.
This is Ticker, your new source for news.